I never thought a warehouse job could change your life. But then again, I'd never worked at Facility 47 before. My name is Tom Wright. 3 months ago, I was jobless, broke, and one late rent payment away from sleeping in my car. So when an offer came in from a logistics center in Newark, I didn't hesitate. The pay was better than anything I'd had before. The benefits were surprisingly generous, and the hours were stable. What could possibly go wrong, right? The building was nothing to look at, just another gray monolith in a dead industrial zone. No signs, no windows, just a sprawling, featureless block of concrete tucked behind chain-link fences and overgrown lots. It was a cold Monday morning in February when I first walked up to the main gate. A security camera clicked as I approached. The gate buzzed open. That was the first moment I felt it. The pressure, like something unseen had turned to watch me the second I stepped onto the property. I shook it off. The main office was a small, windowless room to the left of the loading docks. Inside, a man in his late 50s waited at a desk cluttered with shipping manifests and faded black and white safety posters. He had steel gray hair, dark under-eye circles, and a stare that felt too still, like he didn't blink enough. "Tom Wright," he said, standing up and offering a hand. "Jack Peterson, I'm the floor manager." His grip was strong, too strong. But I smiled, nodded, and tried to ignore the unease creeping up the back of my neck. We went through the usual HR paperwork: emergency contacts, W-4, warehouse safety protocols. Jack's voice was calm, methodical, almost too calm, like someone who'd spent years practicing the same speech. When we finished, he said, "Let's get you familiar with the layout." The warehouse was massive, far bigger than it looked from outside. A maze of towering metal shelves, forklifts, steel staircases, and conveyor belts stretched in all directions under humming fluorescent lights. We walked through the eastern intake zone, where pallets were dropped off and scanned. Then to the west, shipping and outbound. The northern quadrant, Jack told me, was for special inventory. "You won't be going there. That section's under lock." I didn't ask why, not yet. Jack handed me a handheld scanner, showed me how to check inventory, process orders, and tag outgoing shipments. He was quiet, efficient, but there was something about the way he moved, like he always knew where the shadows were. Finally, just as we were finishing the tour, he paused. "There's one more thing," he said. He pulled a yellowed sheet of paper from his pocket and handed it to me. The corners were creased, and the text was typed out on an old typewriter, the ink slightly faded. Across the top in bold, "Warehouse Survival Guidelines, Required Reading." I read the first line. 1. Do not use flashlights during a power outage. Wait for the backup lights. I looked up. Jack's face was unreadable. I kept reading. 2. Never work alone after 10 p.m. If scheduled solo, find another employee. 3. If you hear your name called after hours, do not respond. 4. Ignore any movement seen in the north wing after sunset. 5. Do not whistle, hum, or sing between 3:17 and 3:43 a.m. 6. If you feel watched, you probably are. Keep working. 7. Do not enter the freight elevator alone. 8. If the mirrors in the employee bathroom fog when no one has used them, leave immediately. 9. Do not stare into the dark longer than 3 seconds. 10. If you see the tall one, look away, quickly. I stared at the paper. The words didn't register at first. I read them again. slower. "What is this?" I asked. Jack crossed his arms. "They're not suggestions. Follow them, no exceptions." "Is this some kind of hazing thing?" I forced a laugh. "No." He didn't smile. "This place is different. You'll understand soon enough." That night, I worked my first full shift. At first, everything felt normal. Boxes came in, got scanned, logged, sent out. My scanner beeped. The forklift rumbled. The radio crackled. But every so often, I'd feel it again. That pressure, that sense of being watched from just beyond the shelf rows. No footsteps, no voices, just awareness. I brushed it off as nerves. New job, new place, big space. It was probably just adrenaline. But then I noticed the cameras. There were dozens of them. One in almost every aisle, but not modern, digital ones. These were old 90s-era dome cameras, bulky and outdated. Some were pointed straight at walls. Others stared directly at mirrors that weren't supposed to be there. Why would a warehouse need mirrors? Later in the break room, I met two co-workers, Paul and Emily. Paul was the talkative one. Late 30s, baseball cap, tired eyes. Emily barely spoke at all. She was maybe early 40s, sharp features, and kept glancing over her shoulder even indoors. When I mentioned the rules Jack gave me, Paul just gave a nervous chuckle. "Just follow 'em," he said. "It's easier that way." Emily finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Don't test them," she said. "You don't want to find out why they exist." Then she left, without another word. As the week went on, I started to notice small things. Once, near the north wing, I felt a blast of cold, like walking into a meat locker. I checked the vents. Nothing was running. Another time, while organizing stock on aisle 12, I saw movement down at the far end. It looked like a tall figure ducking behind a shelf. I called out. No response. I walked over. The aisle was empty, but the scanner in my hand flickered. For just a second, the date flashed March 17th, 1976, then returned to normal. I asked Jack about it the next day. He just said, "Glitches happen. Don't worry about it." By the end of week 1, I was convinced something was wrong here. Not just with the building, but with the people. Paul had stopped talking to me. Emily avoided eye contact. And Jack always seemed to know where I was, even when I didn't report to him. There was an incident that Friday. The freight elevator, item number 7 on the list, opened on its own. No sound, no light. Just opened and waited. Inside, it was pitch black. I felt something pull behind my eyes, like it wanted me to step in, like it was breathing. I backed away. The doors closed. No one else saw it. When I asked Jack if the elevator was malfunctioning, he only said, "Good, you didn't enter. That means you're still here." I didn't sleep well that weekend. I kept seeing flashes, faces I hadn't met, rooms I hadn't entered. A woman in white standing at the end of a long hallway, mirrors covered in handprints, a voice whispering my name over and over, but always from behind me, never in front. And that feeling, the one I had on my first step into the property, kept coming back stronger. Something was wrong with this place, and the rules. They weren't here to keep us safe. They were here to keep something else contained. By the start of my second week, I'd memorized the 10 rules. Not out of respect, not because I believed them, but because fear has a way of seeping in when no one gives you straight answers. There was something about the silence in that building, Not the natural kind, but a held breath. Like the whole place was waiting, watching. I started to notice that the other employees didn't just follow the rules. They obeyed them like rituals. Monday morning, I caught Paul walking toward the east end of the warehouse, only to suddenly stop at an aisle, then turn around and walk the long way around. I asked him about it later during lunch. "There's just spots you don't go," he mumbled, eyes fixed on his sandwich. "That end is one of them. But it's just storage," I said. Paul looked at me, not angry, just tired. "You haven't heard it yet, have you?" "Heard what?" He paused. "The breathing. It starts quiet. Then it gets louder. And if you hear it too long..." He trailed off, then changed the subject. Emily, on the other hand, had taken to watching me closely. Whenever I got too near the north wing, she'd find a reason to call me over or assign me elsewhere. One night, she even followed me into the break room, closed the door, and locked it behind her. "You were heading toward aisle N19, she said. "Yeah. So?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Don't go there, ever." Her eyes were sharp now, frantic. "There's a reason Jack told you not to look into the dark." I tried to play it off with a smirk. "You all really take this spooky warehouse stuff seriously." Emily didn't blink. "You think this is a game? Listen to me, just follow the rules. You don't need to understand them, just obey." Then she turned and walked out, leaving me in the stale silence. That night, I got assigned to help with a late shipment from a delayed truck. Emily left early. Paul was on a different shift. It was just me and a guy named Carlos, quiet, stocky, headphones in all the time. Sometime around 10:15 p.m., the lights flickered. Then, darkness. The whole warehouse went black. I fumbled for my phone. The screen barely lit up my face. I remembered rule number 1. Do not use flashlights during a power outage. Wait for the backup lights. It was ridiculous, right? There was no reason I couldn't just turn on my flashlight app. But my thumb hovered over the button and didn't move. Instead, I just stood there, waiting. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Software steady. Coming from the north wing. My breath caught. Then another sound. Closer. Not footsteps. Breathing. Ragged. Slow. Wet. Something brushed the air beside me, cold enough to make my skin prickle. And then, click. The backup lights buzzed to life. I spun around. Nothing. But when I checked the scanner hanging from my belt, the date on the top left corner glitched again. It read, March 18th, 1976, 3:42 a.m. Then it blinked back to normal. Carlos came out from behind a pillar, pulling off his headphones. "Damn blackout," he said, clearly unaware of anything strange. I didn't say a word. The next morning, I confronted Jack. "What's in the north wing?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Things that don't belong in the world anymore." That's not an answer. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Tom, you don't have to believe, but you do have to respect the structure here." "The structure?" He nodded. "The rules. They're older than this building, older than any of us." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. "You really think something's in here?" "I don't think, Tom. I know." That night, I broke a rule. Not on purpose, I just forgot. I was reorganizing some mislabeled stock and didn't check the time. By the time I finished and looked at the clock, it was 3:29 a.m., right in the middle of the window from Rule Chapter 5. Do not whistle, hum, or sing between 3:17 and 3:43 a.m. I hadn't made a sound, but a few minutes earlier, I'd been absent-mindedly humming a song under my breath, an old tune my dad used to sing in the truck. At 3:32, the lights flickered, not like a power outage, more like something was crawling across the ceiling, darkening the bulbs as it passed. Then came the whisper. My name, right in my ear. Tom. I jumped, spun around. No one. Then the mirrors near the employee bathroom, all of them shattered at once. No impact, no warning. Just crack. Tiny fractures spidered across each surface like veins. I ran. The following morning, I came in early. Emily was already there, standing at the break room sink, staring at her own reflection. "You broke a rule," she said without turning. "I didn't mean to. It doesn't care if you meant to." Then she turned to face me. "There are things in here that feed on weakness, curiosity, doubt." I didn't know what to say. She stepped closer. "You need to decide. Either get out now or commit. There's no middle ground." "What does that mean?" But she just walked past me and said, "Ask Jack about the ones who didn't believe. Ask about the disappearances." And then, as if nothing happened, she went back to work. That afternoon, I went digging. I found an old incident report buried in one of the filing cabinets near the back office, dust-covered, forgotten. The report listed 4 employees who had vanished between 1994 and 2008. All had been marked as voluntary termination or left without notice. But in the margins, someone had written notes in red ink. Last seen heading toward N19. Power flicker at 3:43 a.m. Security footage erased. Whistled during blackout. And at the bottom, just 3 words. We lost them. That night, I stood near the edge of the north wing, just looking. The lights buzzed. Air hung thick, still. I could feel the heat from the rest of the warehouse. But that section, it breathed cold. Then I saw it. Movement. A shadow, taller than any man, gliding between shelves. Not walking, not running, sliding. Its head brushed the overhead light, which dimmed as it passed. Its limbs, too long. Its torso, unnaturally thin. Its silhouette shimmered like heat waves, bending space behind it. And then it stopped. Right at the edge of the light. It didn't move, but I knew it was staring back. My pulse spiked. I remembered the rule. If you see the tall one, look away, quickly. But I didn't. Not right away. I couldn't. Something in it pulled at me, like a drowning man seeing the surface but too deep to swim. Then, Emily's voice, far off behind me. "Don't look." It broke the trance. I turned, fell backwards onto the cold concrete. When I looked back, the tall one was gone. Later that night, Emily pulled me aside. "You look too long," she said, eyes full of fear. I couldn't help it. "He knows now. He sees you." "Who is he?" Emily looked away, then whispered, "He's not a who. He's what's left of what used to be human." "What does he want?" "Access, freedom, eyes to see through, flesh to walk with, a name to call." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being dragged into something far older than any warehouse job had a right to be. The rules, the shadows, the disappearances, they were pieces of a puzzle. But the bigger picture, I hadn't even started to see yet. That changed the day I found the name Eastwood. It began with an old clipboard tucked behind a broken cabinet in the northern hallway. I wasn't supposed to be there, not officially. But curiosity and fear are powerful motivators. The clipboard was covered in dust. Most of the papers were moldy, faded beyond recognition. But one sheet near the back was intact. A faded memo dated August 1976 marked, "Transfer of remaining medical files, Eastwood Psychiatric Facility." Psychiatric facility? I blinked, reading the words again. That warehouse used to be a mental institution? I checked the address on the letterhead. Same street, same lot, same coordinates. It hit me like a fist to the chest. This building wasn't built over something dark. It was the thing itself. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Eastwood. Why hadn't anyone mentioned it before? I went online. It wasn't easy. Most of the public records had been purged or buried. But after a couple of hours, I found an archived newspaper clipping on a conspiracy site. Fire at Eastwood claims 37 lives. Investigation ongoing. Published March 20th, 1976, Newark Observer. The article described a late-night fire that swept through the secured wing of Eastwood, trapping 37 patients behind locked doors. They burned alive. The cause? Officially, electrical malfunction. But then there were witness accounts. I heard screaming long before the fire alarm ever went off. Some of the patients weren't even registered in the files. Why were the windows welded shut? And one line scrawled in the margins of a scanned version, clearly not part of the original article. They were trying to contain something. The fire was the final seal. The more I dug, the worse it got. Eastwood had been founded in 1924 as a center for advanced psychiatric intervention. It had received state funding for experimental therapies, including lobotomies, electroshock, and chemical sedation. But in the early 60s, something changed. A series of internal memos, obtained through a whistleblower lawsuit, suggested a Level 3 clearance program was initiated in the basement levels. Patients in that program were never discharged. Some reports mentioned nonverbal screaming, mirror fixation, and one term that kept appearing, entity attachment syndrome. There were no photographs of these patients, no autopsy reports, just gaps in the files, like entire lives had been erased. One note read, "Subject 47 exhibited extreme photophobia and could not be seen under fluorescent light. Caution advised." I stared at that number. Facility 47. That's what Jack had called the warehouse on my first day. I printed everything, brought it to Emily the next morning. She didn't even blink. "You finally found it," she said. "I wondered how long it'd take you." "You knew?" I asked, stunned. "Of course. Everyone who's worked here long enough knows. Jack just pretends it's not public knowledge." "Why?" She hesitated. "Because the more people believe it's all superstition, the more control we still have." Later that day, I confronted Jack. He didn't deny any of it. He sat me down in the office, closed the blinds, and poured 2 glasses of something strong. "Eastwood wasn't just a hospital," he said. "It was a cage." "A cage for what?" He swirled the drink in his hand. "For what's left when humanity breaks in all the wrong places." He explained that the fire wasn't an accident. It was a last resort. The doctors, those who hadn't already disappeared, decided that destruction was the only way to stop what had taken root in the basement. But the fire didn't destroy everything. Some survived, or at least some part of them did. "They're not ghosts," Jack said. "They're not demons either. There's something else. Pieces of pain and memory and madness held together by force of will." And we're just working above them? Jack nodded. That's why the rules exist, not to keep you safe, but to keep the seal intact. It all made sense now. The rules, the blackouts, the presence in the dark. They weren't random. They were part of a containment ritual. The warehouse wasn't just a distribution center. It was a prison. A barrier between the world we know and the things we should never see again. I needed air. I left the office, walked the perimeter, trying to calm my racing thoughts. That's when I saw it, buried behind old shipping containers stacked 3 high. A rusted steel door, padlocked, half covered in ivy, no signage, no keypad, just forgotten. Except it wasn't forgotten, because above it, someone had spray painted a warning. Keeper entry only. My skin turned cold. The lock was broken. I pushed the door open slowly. The hinges creaked like something ancient waking from sleep. A metal staircase led downward into total blackness. I didn't bring a flashlight. Just my phone's dim screen, barely enough to see the steps under my feet. The air changed as I descended. It smelled like ash and rust, like burned flesh soaked into the walls. At the bottom, I found a small control room. Old analog monitors lined the wall, half broken, their screens blank. There were shelves of yellowed documents, reels of tape, and one file cabinet labeled Incident Reports, 1973 to 1976. Inside, I found a worn, leather-bound journal. Raymond Cooper, Night Security, 1981 to 1995. I opened it. The journal was filled with shaky handwriting, scribbled in pen and pencil, margins full of drawings, spirals, stick figures with no eyes, gates made of teeth. One entry read, March 14th, 2:23 a.m. The mirror cracked again. I wasn't even near it. Another. April 3rd. New hire named Wallace whistled during the forbidden window. Gone the next day. No sign. Jack said he quit. I know better. And another. May 17th. Saw the woman in white again. North wing. No footsteps. Just floated. She mouthed something I couldn't hear. Felt like my ears were bleeding. My hands shook as I turned the pages. The deeper I read, the worse it got. Raymond had tried to leave the job 4 times. Each time he said the building followed him into his dreams, into his apartment. He stopped sleeping. Eventually, the final entry said, I'm not the keeper. But no one else is left. The rituals have to be done. Every day, every hour, they watch from the cracks. They wait. Then a final line, barely legible, almost like it had been written in blood. If you find this, it's already chosen you. I left the basement shaking. When I emerged, Jack was standing near the rusted door. He wasn't angry. He just said, It's good that you looked. Now you understand. Understand what? That you can't leave now. Not really. I didn't sign up for this. He nodded slowly. None of us did. Then he handed me a small black notebook. This, he said, is the real rule book. The 10 rules, those are just the surface. The black notebook Jack gave me was smaller than I expected. No title, no labels. Just a matte black leather cover that felt oddly warm to the touch. Inside, the pages weren't typed or even written by a single hand. They were a mix of old entries, some neat, some scrawled in panic, some ink, some charcoal. It wasn't just a rule book. It was a record of survival and a warning. Entry 001, Rule 0. The building is aware. Treat it with respect. Never assume you're alone. That sentence sent a shiver down my spine. I flipped ahead. Entry 016. There is a secondary mirror in break room B that shows reflections delayed by 12 seconds. Do not look into it alone. Entry 027. If the walls in the freight hall begin to pulse, leave immediately. Do not return for 48 hours. Entry 035. Every 17th of the month at 3:46 a.m., you may hear knocking from below the main floor. This is normal. Do not respond. They went on like that, one cryptic note after another. It wasn't just a job anymore. It was an initiation. The more I read, the more I realized. Someone, many someones, had tried to catalog the madness beneath Facility 47, and most of them had disappeared. Jack told me the notebook had been passed down for decades. Most never finish reading it, he said. They either quit or vanish. How long have you been here? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Long enough to know I won't last much longer. That night, I returned to the hidden room I'd found behind the old shipping containers. Only this time, Jack gave me the key. The rusted door groaned open, revealing the same metal stairs, the same decaying smell. But now I wasn't just looking. I was listening. The air wasn't still anymore. It murmured, like 1,000 voices whispering through concrete. Deeper inside, past the old monitors and filing cabinets, I discovered a section I hadn't seen before. A hollow wall. Behind it, a hidden latch. I pried it open with a crowbar Jack had lent me, revealing a false panel behind the shelving. Beyond it, a small room, no larger than a janitor's closet, but packed floor to ceiling with binders, tapes, and 3 oil lamps that somehow still worked. The center of the room was a desk, circular with carved symbols etched into the surface, circles inside circles, triangles, broken eyes, tally marks, and sitting atop the desk, a box, plain wood, no hinges, no lock. I opened it. Inside were employee ID cards, dozens of them, all outdated, all people I'd never met. But one name made my heart stop. Raymond Cooper, night security. His ID photo was younger than I'd expected. Late 30s, wide shoulders, calm eyes. Beneath the ID was a cassette tape, labeled Final Entry, R. Cooper. I didn't hesitate. I brought the tape back upstairs, found an old player in the back office, and pressed play. Tape begins, static, then a deep breath. If you're hearing this, I'm either dead or gone. My name is Raymond Cooper. I've been working night security here for over 14 years. I've seen things you wouldn't believe. The rules are real. The tall one is real. The woman in white is real. They feed on what we bring into the building: fear, doubt, grief. But there's more. There's something deeper. Something below everything. I found a door. Not a physical one. A psychic threshold, I think. It opens on its own sometimes. Usually after someone breaks the rules. When it opens, the entire structure breathes. You feel it in your teeth, in your bones. I've tried to leave 3 times. Every time I wake up in the freight hall. Doesn't matter where I drive. Doesn't matter what time of day. I'm not the keeper, but I'm the only one left who remembers why we need one. If you're hearing this, then maybe you're next. Tape ends. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, not anymore, because I was starting to understand. Facility 47 wasn't just haunted, it was alive, a vessel, a container built on ritual, pain, and sacrifice. The next morning, Emily cornered me at the loading bay. You went into the inner room, she said. You knew? Jack let you in. That means you're the successor. Successor to what? Emily looked around, made sure no one was listening. to the keeper. She told me more that morning than I think anyone ever had. Facility 47 didn't just house relics of Eastwood. It was built atop the original foundation. The lower levels, the ones no one ever talked about, were still there, sealed, buried, but not empty. Jack's job, she said, isn't management, it's containment. He runs the rituals, maintains the boundaries, ensures the seals stay intact. And when he leaves, I asked, you take over. I shook my head. Number, that's not me. I didn't agree to this. Emily's face was solemn. None of us did. But the building chooses. I returned to the hidden chamber that evening, alone. I sat at the carved desk and ran my fingers over the symbols. They pulsed with warmth. Something in the notebook said to draw a small cut on your palm and let it drip into the center circle. A mark of recognition. A contract of sorts. I did it. The moment the blood touched the wood, the carvings flared, faintly but visibly. And then the voices returned, not loud, not angry, welcoming. I left the chamber knowing I was no longer a visitor. The building had accepted me, marked me. And Jack? Jack was already pulling away. He spent more time in his office, fewer check-ins, less conversation. The torch was being passed. Whether I wanted it or not, he showed up on a Thursday, bright-eyed, confident, wearing a company polo 2 sizes too tight, and a smirk that said he thought this whole place was beneath him. Michael Bailey, new hire, and already a problem. From the moment he arrived, he treated everything like a joke. The safety protocols? Overkill. The layout of the warehouse? Too complicated. The 10 rules posted in the break room? He laughed, out loud. You guys really take the spooky warehouse thing to heart, huh? He nudged me with his elbow. What is this? Some kind of initiation hazing? I didn't smile. Emily didn't either. We just walked away. Jack gave him the basics. Let him shadow me for a shift. That night, while we were checking stock by the northeast wall, Michael whispered, "So what's the real deal with the tall one?" I didn't answer. He pressed. "Come on. Tell me there's not some weird hazing ritual. You guys really pretending there's a monster in here?" I finally turned to him. "Don't joke about it." "Oh, come on. Seriously? You're all in on it? Even Emily with her don't walk past aisle N19 crap?" He snorted. "Jesus, you people really need to touch grass." I wanted to grab him, shake him. But instead I said, "You break a rule, you'll find out for yourself." He grinned. "I might just try that." 3 nights later, we had a storm. One of those summer tempests that roll in fast and hit like a hammer. Rain slammed against the roof. Lightning cracked the sky open like glass. Inside, everything felt heavy. The lights flickered around 11:12 p.m., just like they always did before something bad. Emily and I were in the western wing, logging a delivery. Michael was in the northeast quadrant, alone. We radioed him. No answer. The power cut out completely at 11:17. Rule number 1, do not use flashlights during a power outage. But of course, we both knew he would. We ran toward his last known location. The entire warehouse was dark. So dark it felt like the shadows had weight. The air was cold and wrong. Then, a scream. It echoed through the shelves. Long, high, animal. Then another, closer. Michael's voice. He was screaming something between sobs. Then I heard him yell, "Get it off me! It's in my head! Oh God, help!" Then silence. We turned the corner and froze. Michael was on his knees in the center of the aisle, his flashlight flickering beside him. He was surrounded. 8 shadows stood in a ring around him. Tall, too tall, their heads brushing the ceiling. Their arms were long, thin, swaying like reeds in wind that wasn't there. Michael's mouth hung open, eyes wide in horror. He wasn't looking at them. He was looking at something inside them, something we couldn't see. Then the flashlight died, and they moved. I still hear it sometimes. The sound he made. It wasn't a scream. It was a whimper. That never ended. Emily pulled me back as the backup lights buzzed on. The aisle was empty. Just Michael's flashlight on the floor, still warm. We filed a report, of course, but Jack beat us to it. At the morning briefing, he told everyone that Michael Bailey had quit unexpectedly. He said it without blinking. HR deleted his file that afternoon. No missing person report, no police, no questions, just gone. That night, I found Emily in the hidden room. She was lighting one of the oil lamps, her hands shaking. "He broke 2 rules," she whispered. "Flashlight and being alone." She didn't need to say the third, mocking the place. That's not a written rule, but it might be the most important one. I sat beside her. For the first time since I started, I felt grief, not fear, not shock. Grief, because now I understood the cost of this job, and it wasn't just your freedom, it was your soul. Later that night, Jack called me into the freight office. He poured 2 drinks, sat down across from me. "It's getting worse," he said. "What is?" "They're more active, hungrier. The SEALs are thinning." I didn't ask how he knew. I just felt it too. "You think Michael's—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "He's gone," Jack said. "What's left isn't him." Then he looked at me. Serious, calm. "It's time you learned the rituals." Her name was Sarah Mitchell. I found her name in Raymond Cooper's journal, scribbled 3 times in the margins, next to the words. She saw the mirrors open. She heard the breathing. She ran. She lived. Sarah had worked at Facility 47 from 1992 to 1996, listed as inventory supervisor. Her file was clean, terminated voluntarily. But no one ever left voluntarily, not from here. I found her by tracing an old emergency contact listed in a decommissioned warehouse backup server. She lived only an hour away, off-grid, in a weather-beaten cabin near the Pine Barrens. No phone number, no email, just a dirt road and a rusted mailbox. I drove out on a Sunday. The woods were still, too still, as if even the trees were waiting. I knocked twice, no answer. Then the door creaked open. A woman in her late 50s, gray-streaked hair tied back, eyes sunken but sharp. She looked at me like she already knew why I was there. "You're from the warehouse," she said. I nodded. She sighed, stepped aside. "Leave your phone in the mailbox, and don't mention the tall ones inside this house." Her cabin smelled like cedar, old paper, and burnt herbs. There were sigils carved into every doorway, mirrors covered in black cloth. No TVs, no windows without curtains. "I don't sleep through the night," she said. "Haven't in almost 30 years." We sat across from each other at her kitchen table. "I need to understand," I told her. "What's really underneath that building?" She stared at me. "You're the new one." "I haven't accepted anything." She tilted her head. then you're already halfway lost. Sarah told me everything. Not all at once, but in pieces, like puzzle parts thrown across decades of trauma. Facility 47 was one of 7 sites, each built atop former psychiatric institutions with violent histories, each one housing something that should never have existed. Not ghosts, she said. Not demons. Remnants. What kind of remnants? Of people. Of suffering. Of rituals gone wrong. They started as patients, but something twisted them. She told me about the experiments in the 1950s and 60s, how doctors tried to separate consciousness from the body, believing they could isolate trauma itself and extract it. But they didn't extract it. They birthed it. Entities made of hate, pain, and memory. They're not sentient. Not really, she said. But they're aware. And they don't want to be forgotten. Sarah had seen things too. The mirrors, she whispered. They open. When you look too long, they don't show you. They show them. She had witnessed an old supervisor vanish into a reflection that didn't reflect anything. 2 versions of him, she said. One on our side, and one smiling from the other. She quit the next week, or tried to. For 6 days after resigning, she woke up back inside the warehouse, even after driving to another state. Only on the 7th day, after burning her uniform, cutting ties, and carving a sigil into her own skin, did the building finally let her go. I was lucky, she said. Raymond wasn't. I asked about Jack. She nodded slowly. He's the keeper, always has been, but he's tired. They always get tired. It eats at you, holding the seals in place. What are the rituals? Her eyes darkened. They're not ceremonies, not candles and chants. They're actions, rules that anchor the prison. She leaned in. Every time someone follows a rule, it strengthens the barrier. Every time someone breaks one, they bleed through. She didn't answer. Then Sarah told me something I'll never forget. There's a reason the rules aren't published publicly, a reason we only tell new hires after they've already been inside. Why? Because the building listens. She pointed to her chest. And once it knows your fear, it makes room for you. Before I left, she gave me something. A folded sheet of paper, yellowed and smudged with age. These are the hidden rules, she said. Not the ones they post on the wall. These are the ones you live by, Rule 11. If you hear your own voice calling your name, do not answer. Rule 12. If the shelves shift position behind you, do not turn around. Rule 13. Never speak about the building after midnight on a full moon. Rule 14. If you dream of the freight hall, do not go to work the next day. Rule 15. Do not ever, under any circumstances, ask what happened before Eastwood burned. I folded the paper, put it in my pocket. Her last words chilled me. They've chosen you, Tom. I can smell it on you. The building won't let go now. It never does. I drove home in silence. Didn't play music, didn't check my phone, didn't look in the rearview mirror, because something about the air behind me felt heavy, like it had learned my name. The next day, Jack handed me an old metal key. This opens the sub-basement, he said. The real one. I didn't ask how he knew I'd been to Sarah's. I just took the key, and with it, the first step into what I was becoming. The door to the sub-basement was colder than anything I'd ever touched. Not like ice, like absence, like it had forgotten what warmth was. The key Jack gave me was simple, old brass, no tag, but it fit perfectly. When I turned it, I heard a deep click, not mechanical, but almost organic, like a throat unlocking. The door creaked inward, revealing a staircase spiraling into darkness. No lights, no railings, only symbols carved along the wall. Symbols I recognized from the hidden room, from the journal, from my dreams. I went alone. Jack said I had to. The binding is personal, he said. You either survive it, or they do. He handed me a pouch before I left. Inside were 3 things: a silver coin etched with concentric circles, a vial of dark red powder, and a small shard of mirror wrapped in cloth. When you reach the chamber, he said, you'll know what to do. I descended. Step after step, the air grew thicker. The darkness wasn't empty. It had weight, depth, consciousness. Somewhere deep in the black, I began to hear the hum. Low, ancient, constant, a vibration in my ribs, my teeth, my blood. I reached the bottom. There was no door, just a threshold of stone, framed by 2 rusted pillars. And beyond it, the binding room. It wasn't a room in the human sense. The space bent inward, like I had stepped inside a throat or a womb made of stone. The air pulsed. There was no ceiling, only blackness, no walls, only the suggestion of shape beyond reach. In the center, a stone altar surrounded by chains bolted into the floor. Something sat beneath the altar, something alive. It breathed. I stepped forward, feeling every nerve in my body scream. As I reached the altar, the symbols on the walls flared faintly, blood red, then black again. I placed the silver coin in the center of the altar. The hum spiked. I poured the powder over it. And finally, I unwrapped the mirror shard. I was not supposed to look into it, but I did, just for a second. It wasn't my reflection staring back. It was me, yes, but not whole. My eyes were black, my skin cracked, and behind me shadows moved. Then it whispered. Not a voice. 1,000 voices layered like sediment, male and female, old and young, crying, laughing, chanting. Do you accept the weight? My mouth moved before I could think. Yes. Do you bind yourself to the seal? Yes. Will you stay while others run? Yes. Then bleed. I didn't cut myself. The stone altar did. A thin blade rose from its side, out of nowhere, and slashed a line across my palm. The blood hit the powder. The coin flared, and the chains moved. They didn't clatter. They shifted like snakes. They rose and wrapped around my arms, my chest, my throat. I couldn't breathe, but I couldn't fight either. And then they entered me. It's impossible to describe what that felt like. Like every shadow I'd ever ignored was suddenly inside my skin. Like every hallway I'd ever feared now lived behind my eyes. Like I could hear them. All of them. Every entity sealed below Facility 47. They didn't scream. They didn't roar. They whispered. Soft, endless, broken. And in that moment, I saw everything. I saw Eastwood burn. I saw the doctors flee. I saw what crawled out of the furnace, still breathing, still watching. I saw Jack, 40 years younger, standing in this same room, bleeding into the stone. I saw the other keepers across the world in their own prisons. A temple buried beneath Kyiv, a salt mine outside Tode, Norway, a hospital abandoned in São Paulo where the walls cried blood once a year. And I saw something else, a pattern, a web, an old crumbling net cast across the earth, and I was now part of it. When I woke, I was alone. The altar was cold. The chains were gone. But the scar on my palm was still fresh. Burning. Jack met me at the top of the stairs. He didn't ask what I saw. He just nodded. Then it's done. What happens now? You start watching. For what? For cracks. He didn't come in the next day, or the day after. His desk was empty. His car was gone. All that remained was a note taped to my locker. When it gets too loud, don't answer the walls. Jay. I haven't seen him since. It's been 6 weeks since the binding. Jack is gone. No resignation, no transfer. Just gone. His nameplate on the office door is blank now. I haven't changed it. I don't think I ever will. I work alone now. Emily still handles logistics, but she never comes near the sub-basement. And she won't meet my eyes for long. Everyone knows something changed, but no one asks. The rules haven't just become routine. They've become ritual. Every morning, I walk the perimeter at exactly 6:30 a.m. I whisper a phrase, 7 words in a language I don't recognize, but my tongue knows how to say it. I light a candle in the freight hall every 3rd Thursday. I wipe mirror number 2 in break room B without looking into it. And every Friday, I bleed a single drop into the drain below the northeast shelves. Why? Because the building asks. Because the seal still holds. But just barely. 3 weeks ago, I started hearing knocking beneath the freight elevator. Soft at first, now louder, rhythmic, like breathing through fists. The shadows are longer, the air is colder, and sometimes, just for a second, I see Jack, or something wearing his shape, watching me from the end of the corridor, not moving, just present. Then came Michelle Roberts, the new hire, mid-20s, quiet, observant, didn't laugh at the rules, didn't ask many questions. Jack would have liked her. I assigned her to low-risk inventory, aisle C12 through D5, plastics and small electronics, far from the hot zones, but the building took an interest in her. On her 4th night, she told me, I heard someone whispering in the vents. A woman? She said my name. I didn't blink. What did you do? I ignored it, but it sounded like my mom. You don't have a mother. She died when I was 9. I nodded. You passed the test. She didn't run. She stayed. And in some way, that scared me more than if she'd quit. Because the building chooses, and if it chose Michelle, that means it's planning ahead. 2 nights ago, I performed the full ritual for the first time. Not the daily rites, not the rules, the binding maintenance. It required the coin again, the mirror shard, my blood. But this time, it wanted something more, something alive. I brought a stray rat caught in one of the storage cages. When I slit its throat, the walls shuddered. Not visibly, but I felt it, like a ripple through time. And then, a new mark appeared on my palm, not carved, not burned, grown, like something beneath my skin had written back. The next day, one of the delivery drivers, Marcus, approached me. Hey, someone tagged my truck with a weird symbol. What kind of symbol? He showed me a photo. It was the same one from my palm. I asked him where he parked. He pointed to the northeast quadrant, directly above the altar. That night, I stood at the mouth of the sub-basement, didn't descend, just listened. The breathing had stopped, replaced by whispers, hundreds, thousands, but one was clearer than the rest. It's almost time. I've stopped sleeping. Not out of fear, out of responsibility. The dreams aren't mine anymore. They belong to the threshold. And in them, I see the world cracking, slowly. Facility 47 isn't the only one weakening. Something happened in Toad, Norway. Another keeper gone missing. The seals ripple when one falls. I felt it in my bones, like a storm underwater. I've started writing new rules, not for me, for Michelle. Because one day, this place will call her name, just like it called mine, just like it called Jack, just like it called Sarah. And when it does, she'll have to decide. The coin is warm in my pocket now, always. The symbols on my scar pulse every few hours. The tall ones no longer hide. They nod when I pass. Not out of respect, out of recognition, because I'm not a visitor anymore. I'm not an employee. I'm not even just the keeper. I am the seal. Epilogue. This morning, Michelle knocked on my office door. She held a slip of paper. My flashlight died in aisle N-17 last night, she said. I tensed, but I didn't turn it back on. I looked her in the eyes. You saw them? She nodded. They saw me first. And? I didn't run. I stood, walked to the drawer, took out the black notebook, the same one Jack gave me. I held it out. Then you're ready. She stared at it and took it. They say some buildings remember. The bricks don't forget. The steel still echoes screams. The floors hold footprints of people no one remembers. But this warehouse, it does more than remember. It watches. It chooses. It waits. Tom Wright never quit. He never left. Because there are some jobs that don't end at 5 p.m. Some responsibilities you don't punch out of. Some seals you hold with your life. And when you're gone, someone else picks up the key. Facility 47 still stands, still humming, still breathing. Most of the world doesn't know what's buried under its concrete, but you do. Now and tonight, when you turn off the lights and hear something shuffle in the shadows, don't answer. Because once it knows your name, it never lets go.